we spoke about your childhood quite a bit, I'd say, today, but I know there's a ton to unpack. It's incredible and tragic at the same time.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first memory at all as a child?
I have a few great ones. By the way, my dad, Rudy Reyes Sr., he's passed. So I'm his favorite son, not his biological kids. I'm his favorite son, and he always held me up on a pedestal. I didn't know he was not my biological father till I was about 10 or 11. That really hurt. But I was his favorite son, and I spent about 3 years of my life as a child with him. My mother and Rudy Reyes Sr. divorced very early, just when little Michael was born. And he'd always call me Papa, and he'd call me Dad. He'd say Dad, and I'd say Dad. He'd go Dad. And he'd also call me my little huevitos, like my little balls. He's a character, funny, Marine Corps, confident, powerful, even though he was 5'3", 5'4", most confident dude in the room. He took me to, we did Halloween. I think Michael wasn't even born yet. It was just Caesar and I. And I had a Casper of the Friendly Ghost costume on. This is a fire hazard. This vinyl, I don't know if you all have them in the UK, a vinyl costume with a plastic vinyl mask. Just a fire hazard waiting to happen. You know what I'm saying? You end up looking like Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger if you freaking get anywhere near a match with this thing. And we're trick-or-treating, and I'm smelling that vinyl, and I'm holding hands with both him and my mother, and I have some beautiful little vignettes like that, and then I got some tough ones too. Like my grandfather was my mother's father, and he was really violent, drank to excess, and loved to hurt people, and he was a child abuser, and hated me. Little did I know, because I was a bastard. I had no idea. Nobody in my Mexican traditional family talked about any of this stuff. So I didn't know why, first of all, I looked kind of more fair, and why all of my cousins and relatives always treated me differently, and treated my mother horribly for this reason. And I guess she had been fighting with my grandfather. I was about 3 or 4. And I remember I was so small that the bed was high, and I used all my athletic ability. I was an athlete even when I was 3 years old. You know, I jumped up on that bed. This is down on the border of Texas and Mexico. We had curtains that were flowers. And I would see the shadows of the hummingbirds zooming around, trying to get the flowers of the curtains. And the breeze is going through, and it was such a beautiful day, and the light coming through, but my mother was shuddering and crying. I said, "What's wrong, Mommy? You know, what's wrong?" And she couldn't tell me. She had been fighting with her father. She was crying, and then I hear this big ruckus and then sirens outside, and I go running out the front porch and jump off the front porch, and I see my father there, Rudy Reyes Sr., and my scumbag of a grandfather, whose his eyes were always jaundiced and yellow, and he's got his knife out, and my dad's got his pistol out, and I run to my dad, and I'm holding on to his legs. Daddy, what's wrong? You know, are you going to kill him? Because I wanted him to. That man, that grandfather of mine, I didn't know why nobody liked me. I had no idea. He whipped me one time for the smallest of infractions. And he had a really skinny belt. He's still dressed in the 50s. This is like 1975, 74. And he whipped me so mercilessly. It cut me so bad that I kind of went into shock, and I couldn't stop heaving. Right? My mother was, I think she might have been out partying. She was young. She was only 17 when she had me. And when she came home the next day, I was still... But I had already moved on with my life. I'm playing in the bathtub with my 2 brothers. I'd already been playing outside, but I was cut up really bad all over. And I'm, you know, heaving. And I never forgot that. I never forgot it. And so when my dad had that 357, he had his Colt Python. He'd just come onto the police department. So are you going to kill him? Like I was hoping, are you going to kill him? And of course he wanted to. And my mom comes running out. She's screaming. There's cops there that are his buddies trying to calm it down. And I guess this is just this environment and this history. It's not that unique to me. It seems that in a lot of rough and tumble regions, the border, places where there's a lot of pain and economic struggle, when things are falling apart, I'm sure that there's been some other kids probably grew up like me. At the time, it was all I knew. And then shortly, my mother and father were completely apart, and then I'd moved to Kansas City with my grandmother. And I wonder if, because I was so traumatized so early on that it inspired my memory. Like I've got a really sharp memory ever since. Photographic, I think. If I read something, I never forget. If I see something, I can't remember lyrics unless I read them. But if I see something, probably because of that trauma. And I remember preschool. I fell asleep in the bus, and we were going on a field trip to the farm. And I was so little, I was sleeping in the seat, and they didn't do a head count. The bus driver went on back to the bus depot. I woke up smelling like freaking oil and gas and pneumatics, and it's a big auto shop for buses. And I started to cry, and I didn't know where I was, and they found me. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's that. Maybe it was those early traumas. But also, I have so many great memories of like chasing the little baby frogs out of the canal, and playing with my two puppies, and learning to read, learning to draw. I'm an artist as well. Learning to draw, and being number one at school. I was number one at school until third grade, and that's when my life really started falling apart. I was number one. Writing, arithmetic. I was even in the gifted and talented program, considering I had no resources at home, but I was so in love with it. I still am an avid reader. I still read all the time. And I just kept going forward. I just kept going forward best I could. I love comic books. I love heroes. I focused on that, That's what I did.
Listening to your childhood is tough. Those difficult moments are tough. The fact that you smile and pick out those good memories, though, is so amazing.
As many of you know, we are independent creators and filmmakers, but there is a massive attack on us right now. Traditional media over the last few years has started to slowly die. They are no longer the independent voice that you first thought they were. That's why we've created Mulligan Brothers Patreon. We've built something special for our most dedicated supporters, and I want to break it down for you real quick. The supporter tier gets you ad-free early access to both video and audio versions of Mulligan Brothers interviews 24 hours before it goes public. The executive tier gets you everything that a supporter tier gets, plus more. Exclusive interviews and behind the scenes content, walk and talks, daily routines, unreleased interviews, the stuff that you don't see anywhere else. And finally, the executive producer tier. Everything from the supporter tier and the executive tier, plus exclusive perks. Access to our treatment packages. Be the first to see which guests are coming up and get insight into the topics we'll be discussing before anyone else. And you'll even get an executive producer credit on every single documentary that we make. So if you've ever wanted to support the Mulligan Brothers mission of inspiring change so we can go around the world and get these stories that nobody else will, this is exactly how you do it. Go to patreon.com/Mulligan Brothers or click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Join the community and help us inspire change.